So Shabbat Shalom. So the Torah portion is a lot of. I want to discuss two things that are kind of not necessarily connected, but things that our enemies use against us. The second thing, I say enemies lightly, but in a proverbial stance, it could be actual. Hold on a second, my computer's acting up here. Okay, so the first is that in the temple. Well, first of all, let me go through the mitzvot today. Forgot to do that last week. The mitzvot for this Torah portion, Bechukotai is there's 12. Estimate the value of people as determined by the Torah, not to substitute another beast for one set apart for sacrifice. The new animal, in addition to the substituted one, retains consecration. The estimate of the value of the consecrated animals, to estimate the value of the consecrated animals, to estimate the value of consecrated houses. So this is saying that Rashi was saying that you don't have to do the whole thing like Ananias and Sapphira. Remember their story about they're like, we gave all this stuff. The Mishnah and several sages say that we could say, well, I dedicate the door, so we don't have to do it all. Or I dedicate this arm of this animal. Not to change consecrated animals for one type of offering to another. Carry out the laws of introducing possessions or harem. Not to sell harem. Not to redeem harem. Separate the tithe from animals, and not to redeem the tithe. So the vast majority of these we can't do. We can practice, right? But there's no temple. So we can practice to look forward to the temple when we can do these mitzvot. So getting back on track on the specific Torah portion, the valuation is a thing. Like I said, our enemies use against us. They say, "See, we take slaves even to be used in the temple." Here again, Rashi says that we don't. It's a very strange custom, but it was around in the times of the surrounding nations that you could dedicate a piece of your slave or yourself. You could say, "My heart is inclined to the service of the Mishkan, and I dedicate my heart to the temple." But you're not going to pull your heart out and give it to the priest. What you would do is you would give a valuation. The priest would say, "Okay, well, your heart is such and such amount," and you would pay that to the temple. But there's some people that would basically, like in the case of the Jephthah, who gave his daughter, figuratively, it says she went forth and she was burned as a sacrifice, and our sages say that she was dedicated to the temple. In other words, her maidenhood, she wouldn't have a children. For all intents and purposes, the end of Jephthah ended with his daughter because she was celibate. She went to the temple and was served in the temple. So people were given as they gave themselves and they gave their slaves, they gave their children if they were extremely poor, they were pious. And so, but it was they were consecrated, they were holy, right? So it's not just a run-of-the-mill slave. This was a person that was treated as a set-apart person, especially used in the Torah. I mean, in the temple. So also, it's interesting that when the separation of animals was done, they couldn't come back and like, no, not that animal. I'm going to take this animal. Yeah, and if they did that, if we did that, then both the animal that we wanted to substitute and the original animal was consecrated. A lot of these things were done out of sight, right? So this had to be a heart issue. So why I say all this? I say this because some people will take this and say, well, look how cruel the Israelites were. Look how bad we were. And we even took slaves and put them in service to, the holy causes. But these were workers. Slavery was a very, very common occurrence. And it's not like today with the African slaves and the Irish slaves and the Spanish slaves. These were basically workmen. And the good thing is they could be redeemed. Now, if a non-Jew was a slave, then they couldn't be redeemed, but they could be redeemed if they joined the nation, right? They could convert and they could have all the rights of Israel. Okay. So the second thing I want to address was there was a kind of a discussion yesterday about washing your hands and what is the proper way to prepare for Shabbat. And so I gave several different posts, one for women, one for men. The men is kind of very broad. It came from the Talmud in a discussion about cleanliness. And I believe it was Rashi that said, the only thing that you need to do to be clean is to wash your hands, wash your feet, wash your face, and all your, your elbows and your groin and under your arms. And believe it or not, it was known that Jews are very clean people. Right, during the Black Plague and in France, there was a time where they said if you wash yourself, you become a Jew. Right, you become too clean. The Jew dust descends, and you somehow get tainted. Okay, but okay, so there came a discussion, and the second one for men, it was called Talmudology, and there's a discussion about Yeshua and his approach to washing hands. So I believe I believe Baruch said, "What about Luke?" I believe it was Luke 11. I wanted to kind of put that in context. Okay, Luke 11:37, and Yeshua is basically saying the inner workings of mitzvot in our lives. We need to also have the outward approach. We need to have the outward approach. We need to have the inner approach. And right in the middle of this, it says, and he spake, and a certain Pharisee, which Yeshua was a Pharisee, he was speaking to his own people, besought him and to dine with him. And he went in and sat down to meat, M-E-A-T. And that in Greek, that's meat. They were sitting down to meat dinner, right? And when the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. Okay. It wasn't a bread dinner, it was a meat dinner. Well, we can assume that there was bread at the meal, but it said specifically meat, right? And then Yeshua basically he went on a rant about Pharisees, okay? Calling them fools and blasting them about things they do to kind of get people to watch them. And I don't think that Yeshua was saying not to wash, okay? Especially, it says right here that he sat down for a meat dinner, right? And I think we have to make it a distinguishment about traditions, right? Now, I'm not saying traditions are bad. I'm not saying that at all, okay? But for our family, we have certain traditions. Every Shabbat we go out and look for stars and sing, and hope that we sing Eliyahu Hanavi, and we look forward to Elijah the prophet returning, and bring in Mashiach, right? Now, if my daughter, several years in the future gets married, and she's like, "Well, we got to do this." We got to do this because it's a tradition. Her husband's like, well, I don't know about the tradition. And she's like, okay, you have to do this tradition or, you're not a Jew or whatever. That happens, People say, well, you're not following my tradition, So Yeshua is blasting that. Yeshua is saying, look, if you wanted me to wash before dinner, did you provide me water to wash my hands? Did you take me across and say, hey, I noticed you didn't wash, for before dinner. What's going on? He didn't say that. He put him on blast. He's like, look at this guy, him and his disciples. And it's later on, it's discussed in another part of the Besorah. And so there's obviously an issue that Yeshua is pointing to this specific tradition. Now, what I'm going to say about this is Yeshua did not leave a pattern of ritual. Okay. He didn't write that. Okay. And I think one of the reasons why it's not recorded is because he expects us to follow the tradition, the sages. Okay. If Yeshua had said, okay, you wash your hands in the morning and never have to wash your hands again. We say, okay, well, and he discussed the reasons why. Then we can say, okay, here's the bottom, but he didn't. Okay. So the person that our fellow brother who wrote an article was basically saying, look, this divided Christianity and Judaism. Well, there is lots of different traditions. We don't know what Yeshua is specifically saying, but I would say that those of us that are Jews should embrace what the sages say. In the light that we don't have Yeshua's specific teachings on what he was saying. That's the problem. Is Yeshua was a specific man in a specific time dealing with specific issues, and now going and trying to reinterpret or interpret it to mean this or that. It's a situation that he was bringing attention to, that yes, they wash their hands, and this can go to us. Okay, yes, they can wash their hands. They can have tzitzit. They can have peyotes. They can wear kippah. But if we cuss people out in traffic, then oh man, okay, well there's something to work on, right? So just want to point that out is and follow the mitzvot and to apply it today the best we can. And when in doubt, go with what the people who sit in the seat of Moses do. All right, that's our sages and the Torah and those that are Torah teachers. So Shabbat Shalom.